Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering, discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me today, once again, we have Logan Wilkinson. How you doing, Logan?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I am doing all right. It's
Mhm.
been a low-key kind of chill week at work because a
I
lot
agree
of
with that.
like our clients have been at like a conference that our work kind of hosts this week. So like all the people who would be submitting like support tickets and stuff are there and they're not submitting tickets to us. So it's been like
Right.
nice like week for those of us that stayed behind to get caught up on things. So yeah, it's been a relaxing week of work to kind of offset everything else going on. But yeah, today we're going to be talking all about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, specifically the first episode, A Normal Amount of Rage. As we often do with these MCU shows. Why do we pick it? Because it is an MCU show, so we'll do kind of what we typically do of this is kind of like our impressions of the first episode that has gone live
Mhm.
this week. And then, we'll circle back around to the show when it all wraps up and kind of give like full season impressions. Um, Maybe at some point, because this one is a longer running one, maybe we'll like check back in a month as like a halfway
Yeah, I
point
was just
check
saying
in
like we could do like
option.
a halfway point check-in. That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, we'll see. Depends on what else is out there in the Disney Plus verse for us in the coming couple months. Um, yeah, a little bit of the history lesson on this one. The series is originally released. This episode originally released today as we were recording it, August 18th, 2022. And the series will be released episodically every week until October 13th, 2022. This first episode has a runtime of 37 minutes. And in the MCU timeline of things, we had Moon Knight that ran from March through May of this year, followed by Doctor Strange
Mm.
in the Multiverse of Madness. Miss Marvel, which both Logan and I very much liked, was
Fantastic.
June through July. Then we had Thor Love and Thunder there, July 8th. We had the I Am Groot series, which came out a week ago, which is technically the MCU timeline of things. So you can go check that out as well. Now we have She-Hulk. Following She-Hulk, we have an untitled Halloween special that is supposed to be coming out in October of this year. We have Black Panther Wakanda Forever will be wrapping up
Mm.
phase 4 of the film
I
side of
forgot that
things.
comes out this year. That's exciting.
November 11th. We have the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, supposed to come out December of this year. Then kicking off Phase 5 next year, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantum Mania in February, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 5 in May, and The Marvels in July of 2023. And then TBD shows in early 2023, I believe, are What If and Loki season 2. Like season 2s of both of those shows, I believe, are
Right.
slated for early next year, but neither of those have release dates, so I don't have them in the timeline of things yet.
Right.
Our roll call here. Our director of this episode is Kat Coiro, or Quaro. I'm not Coiro. She's a TV director with work on episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Shameless, Modern Family, and Girls 5 Eva. She's also the director of this year's Marry Me film with Jennifer Lopez.
Hmm.
The writer of the series is Jessica Gao, who previously wrote for Robot Chicken and Rick and Morty, as well as the completely written and, as I understand it, animated series Star Wars Detours that was never released because it was basically a casualty of the Disney purchase
Merger.
of
Right. Right.
of
Or
Star Wars.
purchase.
It was basically the series by the Robot Chicken team that was gonna just tell fun little side stories in the Star Wars universe, and is just perennially, anybody that worked on it is perennially in their like post-production credits at the top of their IMDb because it's like it's done, just never came out. So that's a fun little one to see pop up every now and then. We have starring. I have a few other names, but I'm going to kind of leave them either for later check-ins or for the end of the wrap up because they actually don't appear in this episode, so no point in diving into them yet. This episode was a pretty, almost a bottle episode in terms of its cast.
Right.
We have, of course, Tatiana Maslany playing Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, probably best known to audiences from her work in the series Orphan Black, which was also in the recent Perry Mason reboot. I am as a big fan of Parks and Rec. She was Tom Haverford's love interest in a couple episodes of that series. So shout out to Tatiana Maslany. We have Mark Ruffalo in a big featured guest starring role in this episode, of course, as Bruce Banner and Smart Hulk. Known from projects like The Kids Are All Right, Spotlight, 13 Going on 30, and of course he's been playing the Hulk since the Avengers back in 2012. Also in here we have Ginger Gonzaga playing Nikki Ramos, who's basically Jen's friend and kind of the opening and closing of the series in the courtroom stuff. She worked on a number of various projects going back to 2007, including Togetherness, I'm Dying Up Here, and Kidding. And Jamila Jamil, who's going to be presumably a larger role moving forward in the series. She's playing Titania or Titania. I don't know necessarily how her character's name is pronounced because we don't hear her. We just see her. She invades the courtroom at the end, gets her butt kicked, but she is one of kind of She-Hulk's arch villains. So we will probably see her throughout the rest of the series as well. But she is probably best known to people from her work on The Good Place, as well as DuckTales, and she was just in the recent released DC League of Super Pets movie, playing the voice of Wonder Woman in that. Few other names that I have kind of already locked away for next time because they show up in the on the IMDb page, but we will visit them when we actually see them. Some of the trivia for this episode / series. This is the Marvel Studios' first full solo Hulk project. The Incredible Hulk in 2008 was partly developed and distributed by Universal Studios, and up till this day, Marvel Studios still has not received the distribution rights to a Hulk film from Universal. Explains why a Hulk film featuring Mark Ruffalo could not be made, despite Ruffalo having played the role since The Avengers in 2012.
They also did sort of get around that a little bit with, obviously, Thor Ragnarok.
Thor Ragnarok is
very much is like a co-lead in that.
Exactly, yeah. It's very much the closest we've gotten to a Planet Hulk kind of thing. Yeah. The original creation of the title character came from the success of The Incredible Hulk, the 1977 series with Bill Bixby. During that series run, producer Kenneth Johnson was rumored to be considering creation of a female version of the Hulk. Character would be used on the series with the intent of possibly spinning her off into her own series, as Johnson had done with the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman. Their plan was to take David's sister, a character already established by early episodes, and have her receive an emergency blood transfusion from him. Due to the show's cancellation, story never came to pass. However, Marvel Comics learned of this development and created She-Hulk so that they would own the rights to any such character. Character's comic book origins turned out to be similar in plan to the TV show.
Weird.
Blood transfusion still the reason for her mutation. But she is Dr. Banner's cousin rather than his sister. Furthermore, character was established to have a milder version of her cousin's Hulk condition, since she keeps her personality, albeit less inhibited, and her intelligence, and continues to work as an attorney in her Hulk form. So fun little, for those that don't know necessarily the lineage of She-Hulk / Jennifer.
She wasn't hit by gamma rays. She just got some blood from someone who was. And that's why it's mild. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, in the comics, as I understand it, she basically gets shot in an assassination attempt against Bruce, and Bruce basically gives the blood transfusion to save her life. So we get hints of that, but instead of a hit job gone wrong, it's a car crash in this one, obviously. The law firm GLK&H is name dropped in the top, and it's basically who Jennifer is delivering her case against at the end of the episode. The GLK and H stands for Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway. The Goodman, there is Marvel Comics founder Martin Goodman. Lieber is Stanley Lieber, aka Stan Lee. Kurtzberg is Jacob Kurtzberg, aka Jack Kirby. And Holden Holloway is basically the only original kind of in honor of somebody else creation, and he is also notably the only partner of the firm that is ever really featured in the comics, and I believe he is in the final courtroom scene at the end of this and will probably be a character in the series moving forward. The Sakaran ship that drives Jen and the Hulk off the road could be a tease towards comic storylines where the Hulk, during his time in Sakaar, kind of in not out on the outskirts. No, what am I in isolation? No, I don't. In the whatever word I'm trying to think of. He had a couple of kids that led into like the Planet Hulk and World War Hulk storylines or whatever. A couple of Hulk storylines. So it could be like an allusion to that. Maybe it's his long lost kid showing up for some daddy son bonding time. As with other Disney Plus shows, we get QR codes kind of littered throughout. The QR code in this one gives a free comic. In this particular case, The Savage She-Hulk #1, basically She-Hulk's debut comic. And lastly, the little arm device that Bruce has explains why Bruce was in human form in the Shang-Chi mid-credits scene, which has been kind of like confusing to people since then of how did he'd been Smart Hulk and he'd kind of like integrated those parts, or Professor Hulk or whatever, so why was he back as a human? And so now we have an explanation for that. So that is the trivia. So let's dive into our thoughts on this first episode here. Logan, we were talking a little bit about just kind of like phase 4 in general stuff and Marvel stuff in general beforehand. You very much this phase have been like dipping in and out. Obviously like Miss Marvel really clicked with you really enjoyed that, but a lot of some of the movies you haven't caught up on, and then a lot of the series you have not been like keeping up with. What are your initial thoughts here on She-Hulk Attorney at Law? Is this a series you think you'll try and continue checking in on week to week? Or was this we're going to do a podcast about it, so you'll watch this first episode and then who knows?
I mean, I'm going to watch the rest of the show because of the content TM. But, I mean, I think I like when the MCU can have some level of fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is I was gonna say series, a universe, I guess, I don't really know, that I think more often than not, especially like increasingly, it occupies this weird space where like it is both like not serious but takes itself so seriously, I feel like at times, and it's just like unappealing. And I enjoy when like the MCU can just be very different, whether that be stuff like Thor Ragnarok, Ant-Man, as we talked about off air, Iron Man 3, or even things that are like not necessarily fun but very distinct and different, like Black Panther or Winter Soldier. And She-Hulk has that vibe of like a fun kind of silly show. I think that She-Hulk herself is a character who I don't know if I'm sold on the Hawk version of She-Hulk yet in terms of her personality. It like even the trivia we ran over there gave more of an explanation for why she's just like so immediately just like I'm normal, I can control this, than the show did. And so that's kind of like, I wish I could have gotten that tidbit in the show. And she's just like, don't worry about it, I got it under control immediately. And it's just sort of like I'd have just liked some sort of thing of like maybe explaining why, but like on the whole, like I like how kind of, flippant and kind of tongue in cheek and smart alecky she is, I think, in this first episode. And I think her character is going to continue to do that. Like you alluded to, this episode is basically a bottle episode. It is basically just her and Bruce the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her and Mark Ruffalo have really good, fun chemistry together.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much more of Bruce Banner we're going to get in the series, but I hope we get at least a little bit more of him because they're just so good together. They play with each other so well. And it is fun to kind of have this, like, in some ways, like, polar opposite version of what, like, being the Hawk will do to you, right? It's like, what would being the Hawk do to you if you're, like, not actually, like, having to deal with the Hawk parts of the Hawk in the same way?
Mm-hmm.
You don't, like, lose control. And she's just like, yeah, like, even her height is, like, she's 6'7". It's like, that's a very tall person, but, like, it's not, like, a giant, like, a fucking, like, 15-foot Hawk that I feel like we get sometimes. So just like, all right, yeah, like, she's a big person. That's like basically it. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, that is like that, like, even that, like, they're just sort of having fun with it. And it feels very kind of silly and whimsical so far. I hope they keep that tone throughout. Like, I would really like the world to not be in danger at the end of the show. I don't know if I'll get my wish in that, but, like, just keep it, like, smaller stakes. Like, let's have it be something simple and fun. I think Miss Marvel did that really well, in terms of mostly confining it to, like, a local story, and kind of keeping its playful tone throughout. And I would like to see that going forward. And so I don't know if pleasantly surprised is the right word, but I was very happy with what I got in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have some issues, which I'm sure we'll get into, but for judging it off of 1 37-minute episode, I'm content with that being the first episode.
Yeah, for me, there were a few moments kind of that I want to touch on off of what you said. One, when they're, like, in the underground lab thing, and it's Tatiana Maslany looking up at, like, the Hulk for once he's in Hulk form for basically the rest of the series. I was like, oh my God, she's, like, so tiny compared to him. And it's so weird seeing, like, just a normal person around him compared to we're always used to seeing, like, larger than life superheroes and stuff around him in the, or he's in the wide shot. So when it is just, like, a 2-person scene and you get this, probably 5-something woman just looking up at this beast of a person.
She's
and
very
like
small.
just the height discrepancy there is like, oh yeah, this is very weird and wild to kind of, like, compare against.
Because even Smart Hulk is, like, sort of an in-between thing, because even he's not, like, as big as, like, pure Hulk form right?
He is the Hulk form. It's just that he has the intelligence of Bruce Banner.
Is he? Because I had always viewed it as, like, he's, like, sort of like an in-between, like, he's, like, a sense of, like, a combination of, like, these two personalities. He's, like, not as big as, like, the Hulk, but bigger than regular Bruce, and, like, like, it is, like, a combination of the two kind of thing is how I'd always viewed him.
Yeah, I don't think so, because, like, you have that bit where they go back in Endgame, and he basically has to, like, blend in as of Marvel's Avengers version of the Hulk, and he just kind of, like, takes his shirt off. He's like, smash, this is so derivative, and all, like, and he's mad about that, but he's essentially body type the same as his younger self. So yeah, I'm pretty sure he's like Bruce Banner or Hulk, and Smart Hulk is just kind of the, like, getting Bruce's intelligence up into big body burly version. One of the other elements that I wanted to touch on is I didn't, like, dive too deep into this in the trivia, and I admittedly don't know necessarily how they justify it in the comics, but I really liked the justification that the show does give of, like, the reason she's able to manage her rage so much better and kind of be in that, like, I'm always angry place that, like, we get to, like, meet Ruffalo's Hulk in is, like, the like, this is what it's like to be a woman in the world. She has that line of, like, I have to maintain my rage because if I don't, XYZ can happen. And, like, one of those things is, like, I could just be killed. And that it, like, that being, like, the explanation for it is, I think, like, of course, a damning indictment on society. That we, are all too aware of. But I think it also is I think it plays into like a very rational explanation of like, yeah, that's not a thing that Bruce really had to deal with on a day-to-day basis up, until he had the Hulk. And so I
What's the
like that.
line? Like fear and anger, like the baseline for a
Yeah.
woman,
Yeah.
basically. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that is like how, at least for the sake of the show, how that's like how we get that like 15-year journey that the Hulk went through really condensed into a couple weeks of a montage episode, basically. So I appreciated that. I think like logistically the origins of the character were just like they weren't going to be able to they had to make She-Hulk sexy to put on the comic books, and you probably weren't going to sell as much if she grunted in the same way the Hulk did to
Right.
comic book fans of the era and stuff like that. So it's probably just a like they needed to do what they needed to do to make her still be, smart while
Right.
also being big and strong and whatnot.
They wanted her to be a bit the Hulk version of Murphy Brown. It's like make this work.
Yeah.
Like however we can get there.
As
a dated reference probably for most of our
yeah, I was gonna say like Murphy Brown dated even for me as a reference. But that was the last thing I wanted to hone in on is I love the Jennifer Walters is a character I believe like in the Marvel timeline of things. I believe she gets introduced and has the fourth wall breaking ability before Deadpool ever does. So like getting her
definitely. If she was in the 70s,
multiple times of throughout this episode, kind of breaking the fourth wall to be like, this is a lawyer show. This is a fun lawyer show. Yes, I happen to be this other thing. Let's get that out of the way. This is a fun lawyer show. Makes it like have that sensation of like this is the MCU version of an Ally McBeal type show.
sure.
And so another, admittedly
Another
dated
20-year-old
dated
reference,
but a little
We're getting
bit
closer.
Yeah, I'd say it's like 10 years after Murphy Brown at least.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what like this has the potential to be. And I think in the hints that we get of that side of things in this first episode, I'm looking forward to that, fun juxtaposition of
right.
And what we've seen, I think, from some of the trailers of like how she tries to like manage her personal life and dating life while being She-Hulk attorney at law. I think there's going to be some potential fun in this one in a way that doesn't have the we're dealing with trauma and grief that WandaVision was, or Loki was, or Falcon and Winter Soldier was. I think this is probably going to be more Hawkeye-like in terms of like lighthearted, fun adventure, with, a handful of other, street level cameos that I think we'll start to see, as well as I like just based on again, the trailers and the idea that she's going to become like a lawyer for super powered beings. We're going to start seeing just all of the D level superheroes start kind of coming out of the woodworks and get introduced and stuff. And I think there's just going to be inevitably some fun behind that in the Marvel sense, in the same way that like the Suicide Squad gets to have fun with like just the most random of characters. I think we'll get to see a little bit of that kind of flavor here in She-Hulk Attorney at Law.
I'm definitely curious about the like legal aspects of this and like how much it is like a law show, because like you said, I think they can have a lot of fun with that, right? If it is sort of like a case of the week dynamic and each one involves its own D-level superhero kind of thing that she's like representing, or allow for like bigger level superheroes to make a cameo kind of thing. Like I think that'd be really fun if they incorporate it like that. I want to see that side of the MCU because it is so little explored, both in terms of the potential for like, humor and laughter, but also in terms of like what are the real world implications of their superpowered beings and what does that look like? Like, I think that could also be a really cool way to tell like more dramatic aspects of the story as well, in addition to the humorful ones. So I hope they do like lean into being a legal kind of show. And similarly, like, I also am very curious to see how they strike that balance with her personal life, because like you've already kind of talked about, most of this episode is just like her becoming the Hulk and hanging out with Bruce. We don't get a lot of her with other people. And so obviously with this episode pulling an Iron Man 1 and like ending with her big reveal that she is a superhero, I'm curious to see what her relationships with other people looked like, what her relationships with her coworkers looked like, what her relationship with potential partners looks like, right? And that, the fun they can have there. Because as we already touched on, right, like Bruce, he had the woman he loved in The Incredible Hulk, and then the stuff he had with Natasha. But for the most part, right, like, especially because Bruce isn't a Hulk via like secondhand blood droplet into like a wound, he had like got gamma rayed up, and so he's just kind of like this like pure, just like anger beast here. It wasn't necessarily safe, which is kind of what he alludes to a lot. And so we don't see a lot of Bruce hanging out with other people. We don't see a lot of Bruce having these interactions, and certainly we don't see Bruce having these interactions as the Hulk, because that's impossible, right? It's just like pure rage. And so I think it's interesting to see what someone with this, especially with this ability, who can control it, what that looks like on the day to day, and what those kind of triggers that snap her into being She-Hulk become. And yeah, like, definitely I'm curious what the personal life aspects of this story are going to be, and kind of what her arc will be now that she presumably is removed from Bruce's orbit much more going forward.
Yeah, I think like she's going to have that like famous name. Obviously, now people will know she's a Hulk. As she kind of touched on, like, prior to her hulking out there at the end, like, Bruce knew and her best friend knew, and that was pretty much it. And so yeah, now she is going to be like the face of this kind of movement going forward. That has been kind of teased in the trailers and stuff. So it is going to be, it's almost the street level superheroes of Daredevil, who has also of course been teased, rather than a world ending threat. And what we haven't gotten to see a ton of that, because it has so often been like end of the world stakes. So this idea of like the almost mundanity of a legal comedy show, because I don't think it's I don't know if it'll be like case of the week a la like a Law and Order kind of thing, but I think it will be like finding the silly kind of superhero cases, and at least I think there will be a lot of episodes that have the energy of her whole Captain America virginity kind of like argument, and the case that she's making for why he had to have been a virgin, of course. Right, yeah. And the one of the best mid credits stingers we've had of the MCU ever, on this one, with he lost virginity to a USO woman in 1943, and Captain America. And then cuts.
It's so good. It's so good. I literally just rewound that scene to watch it again. It's so fun.
I think there's going to be a lot of that kind of energy to it, and I think this is a show that can kind of have fun with that. Miss Marvel gets to have fun with that in the fun for all ages version of it, in the like PG-13 kind of way. And this one, while still also being, PG-13, gets to skirt the line a little bit more, because it is, an adult woman who's having these same kind of, funny theories and stuff that like we've had for, number of years. Like, I know I've been in conversations with people being like, so is Captain America a virgin? Like, how'd that all plan out, man? Because obviously he didn't get that dance with Peggy, and he's just been busy since coming out of the ice. So what's his deal? Like, I know that has been fun food for thought kind of stuff, and so the fact that this show is willing to and has the ability to dabble into those things. Obviously from some of the trailers and stuff, we're gonna get She-Hulk with a Tinder profile or whatever that, some kind of dating app profile, and and bringing men home and stuff like that. So I think we get to just have a little bit more like just more adult themed exploration of ideas than we typically would get in an MCU thing. So I think there's fun to be had there, and I'll be curious to see where they go with it, and how they let some of those beats go. What did you think of the CGI? Because that's definitely one of the things that, like, since those first trailers, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this looks rough," or whatever. What did you think? How did you think that all played out? Given that a lot of this episode is two CG Hulks talking.
It's interesting. So I mean, like, Bruce looks great, right? Like, his Hulk looks great still. I mean, like, we get less of her than we do Bruce, who is pretty much exclusively in Hulk form after the accident.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's weird, but it just takes getting used to, right? Like, just seeing another green bean in a room with a green bean is, like, not something we've really gotten before. I also wonder how much of, like, I mean, like, the CGI is, like, a little bit better than it was in the trailers, but, like, I do wonder just how much of it is, like, as simple as we don't really see the Hulk in clothes ever. At most he's wearing, like, shorts, and, like, here she's wearing, like, a full, like, dress suit kind of thing, as, like, a lawyer, and it's like, oh, that's, like, a weird, like, your brain almost can't compute these, like, two competing, like, things it's seeing. And so, like, I wonder if it just, like, takes time to get used to the idea of, like, oh, she is a Hulk who is also wearing regular clothes and not just fucking cut off shorts.
Yeah.
And so, like, I wonder if there's just an element of that.
I mean, just even in body type, it's more of an uncanny valley because she still has largely human proportions versus the Hulk.
She's just 6 feet tall instead of, exactly.
Versus, like, Hulk,
a 12-foot
is not a, like, real, like, that is a cartoon person, and always has been. I think also there is probably something to say for the fact that they've had 10 years of just continuing to get to refine that technology
100%.
with like, and mapping it against Mark Ruffalo. I will say the thing that really, I remember standing out for me the first time I watched the trailer was, like, I thought, like, her physicality looked fine. The weird thing for me that I didn't really, like, notice, or it didn't, like, bother me in this, at least, was her hair felt very fake in the in the early shots and trailers and stuff. And, like, part of it is like it is just it's a weird thing that, like, she goes from having shorter curly hair to, like, just long wavy luxurious hair to match, like, the persona of the character or whatever, and so it's like that seems like artificial, because it's not like Ruffalo's hair changes drastically. I mean, like, since the Eric Bana Hulk, I would say, like, it's not like his hair goes from, like, something to, like, the stringiness of the Ang Lee Hulk version of things. Like, the modern Hulk has the same kind of, like, curls and stuff that Ruffalo has in human form. So it's just a weird, like, I don't know why they made that, like, animation or artistic decision. Because there are definitely a lot of things where it's just like, you could probably just, like, it feels like you could do the stuff they did in, like, Lord of the Rings, of just kind of, like, put her in, like, Elphaba makeup or whatever, and just kind of, like, have her against a green screen or something in the essence of making her bigger, a la, like, Gandalf. But you don't really need to, like, because her proportions are more or less feminine and human, it seems like she could have just kind of stayed that way. Like, I definitely don't need them doing the, like, Lou Ferrigno kind of thing of, like, this is very clearly a different person playing this version of the character. But yeah, it's just like, I'll say, like, the CG didn't bother me at all during this episode. I thought, like, everything looked good. I thought there was, like, fun action to it, especially when they do play around with her hairstyles. Like, she has it up in a ponytail, during some of the training stuff. It's like, cool. That looks like just a better version of the character versus, like, this just, like, suddenly long, glamorous Amazonian kind of hair. That's like, but why?
I agree with that. I also think that, hair is one of the trickiest things to get right in like any animated form, right? Like you hear a lot of like game developers talk about this, and
I mean,
obviously in like
all those
films as
early,
well. Like
yeah, all those early Toy Story things. It was like, this is how many different strands of hair are in Sully. It's like,
right,
and how long it took to render all of that stuff. Yeah.
and so like hair is just obviously like a notoriously hard thing to get right and make look real. It's one of like the I think biggest culprits of like the uncanny valley, just like it just not looking right. Um, but yeah, I agree that it's super bizarre that her hair just grows like a foot and a half whenever she transforms into. It doesn't make any sense. Whatever dumb excuse they give is like fine. They just wanted her to look like this because that is her comic look, which is fine. I don't give me any explanation. Like that is enough for me. I understand why it's like this, but yeah, it's just like that's weird. Whatever. I guess we're just gonna not really get onto that. I did actually want to loop back. And like to an earlier conversation that we had been having too of like I think that the look of the show as a whole I like, right? Like I think some of the MCU shows I feel like just some television shows in general just feel their budget, and this one to me felt expansive. It helped that for most of the thing we're just on like a really beautiful beach, so you don't have to like build a set there, but it looked really nice and it looked really impressive. We'll see how that holds up as we move into like more set based things, probably like courthouses and like her apartments like that. But like I thought it looks really beautiful across the board actually this episode. And I liked the small touches we got of things, right? Like the little musical cue whenever we went to like Iron Man's helmet and Bruce's little hut, I thought was really nice. And just Bruce's, few repeated mentions of Tony throughout things.
I mean, even like the
were
Led
really
Zeppelin
great touch.
clearly being like leftover Tony Stark clothes that
Right.
Bruce is giving to Jen to wear as like, because this is this little bungalow that the two of them had together during,
Yeah.
the blip years or whatever. I'll say, like, going back to the like, I don't expect Bruce to really circle back. Maybe he'll be in like the last episode or something like that, but I don't expect we'll see him a lot throughout the series. I think the fact that like the credits list him as special guest star in this episode,
I saw that.
I think it was pretty much like, we're gonna throw in all of the Bruce stuff in this first episode, and we're gonna throw in all of the CG budget into this first episode where we have two Hulks going at it. And then I think we'll start to see. I think there probably will be a little bit more of a like, not necessarily a cheaper look to it, but I think it will. I don't think it will have the level of budget poured into the rest of the series, because I don't think it will have the like Avengers level hero in there to really like keep the audience
right
in the show moving forward. I think it was like, hey, we're bringing him in to introduce this character and kind of set the stakes, and now like we hope you're along for her ride now, and he's gonna go off and figure out what's going on with that Sakaar ship that showed up off screen. I but on that note, like I liked their training stuff, but I also liked that like the show was like, of course we're going to give you a Hulk versus Hulk fight. Because it was one of those things like I hadn't even thought about until they start having their like opposite ideologies. Where I'm like, oh, are they gonna come to blows? Are we gonna get some fun kind of like action stuff like that? Are we gonna get like our Batman v Superman kind of vibes here? And they give it to us. It's just like a fun little like treat. I had a good time.
It didn't work for me.
Oh, it didn't work for you?
I didn't like it as much. I mean, I think again, like a lot of this She-Hulk stuff was sort of hit or miss for me, like as like that character. It didn't work, mostly because like it was weird how like I guess like easily she played Bruce. Like he's not very smart. Like that's the thing. Like I feel like Bruce is like super smart, and then like there's like a point in the episode where like he just kind of becomes like an idiot again for a little bit, and like it serves a story purpose, which is why it happens, and I'm like, it's fine. But like the fight for me, like I don't like a thing in superhero movies, and they like do it all the time, where like someone will like just newly acquire powers and be like just as good as a fighter as someone who's had power, and it's just like this isn't like it's sort of that thing like this doesn't make any sense though, like the reason it doesn't make any sense is because like we just want these two to fight, and we just can't have Bruce beat the shit out of her.
Yeah.
So like we're gonna make her just as good, which is like fair, and like that's nice, but it's just like thing of like this doesn't make any sense, and like that's fine. Like if you can embrace that and like just go with it, it's a great like 2 or 3 minute scene. But for me, it's just kind of like I didn't need this. Like I could have like skipped over that scene and just had her have that like reconciliation with Bruce, like at the bar again, without her like aborted escape before that. It just didn't work as well for me.
Yeah, I think what like or the leap in logic that I made that like helped make it work for me is that like we get the setup earlier. Yeah, like Bruce is pulling his punches.
Cousin, right? Yeah.
In the same way that like Bruce throws that first boulder and then she throws a boulder further and like is bragging about it, and then he basically shows exactly what he can do. Yeah. It's like, okay, so he still is the bigger, badder Hulk. Absolutely.
Right.
And so I feel like there was a lot of that. Like, just from simple like things of like him like being annoyed that he has to like take his glasses off because she's like thrown a whole bunch of stuff at his head and broken the glasses and stuff. So yeah, like it didn't bother me. It was a fun fight for the sake of a fun fight. But yes, I fully understand and can appreciate that issue with like suddenly the person who magically now has powers is just as badass as the person who's been doing it for 10 years, 15 years.
I am curious what you thought of the very brief small fight at the end in the courtroom, because to me I think the fight with Bruce and She-Hulk in the middle of the episode was like, even despite my issues, I think it looked really well. Again, I think it looked really cool. That fight at the end, even again, it was only like 20 seconds long, but I think that one looked much rougher. And the like I don't know if we decided on her name, like Titania, like her look I thought looked really rough.
That's
from the very brief glimpse we got of it.
So yeah, I think that's where I'm leaning into the stuff I've seen from like the trailers of like we're gonna get like C and D level bad guys, and I feel like that's kind of the territory she probably falls in, and so like she like. I think we will see play out in the next episode, like what she was doing there, why she was there. What I've kind of got just in the back of my mind is whatever trial is going on here, whatever like the defendant was, on trial for this big bad corporation person. I feel like she probably thought that he had wronged her or something, or maybe she created or the corporation created her or whatever it is.
Right.
So she probably like busted into that courtroom to get a little bit of like Batman-esque justice and was not expecting there to suddenly be a Hulk level like superpower that can just knock her out with one punch. So I think that was just kind of a like it. I don't think that's supposed to be the big climactic fight of the episode. I think it is like it serves the purpose of, well, Jen can't just sit by while this courtroom is wrecked and do nothing. So she has to Hulk out, take this person out, and then, go back in Jen form and be like, I'm ready to finish this. So yeah, I think we'll see like the end of that beat, or at least the next part of that beat in the next episode, and this was just kind of like a tease for whatever is going to happen there. Yeah, it wasn't a great, like, I think basically the move that she makes, it like she comes in, bursts, explodes the wall or whatever, and then does kind of like a flying kick that Jen just kind of knocks out one.
Thing for me was like that flying kick was not like well CGI'd. I think like it was just like her like very slowly, like it just like
I mean it struck me as like wire work.
I think it
was wire work that like all of the CG work on this went to the prior 30 minutes of the episode.
Exactly.
That was very much
exactly.
we'll get to it if we have time, guys. But
we'll get to we'll get to that in
as
post,
we've heard from a lot of reports recently, Marvel may be a little not great to all the CG houses that are doing all of the work for Marvel. So maybe they just did what they could with the budget they had or with the time they had, and that for a blink and you'll miss it kind of shot. It's like, yeah, if you really want to like focus in on that, it's not going to look great, but in the broader context of the rest of the episode, I think it's fine.
I think it does tie into a thought I had a couple different times I watched this episode, and certainly at the end of it, which is like, I would have loved for this to have had like 10 more minutes, like especially like in the beginning and end, everything felt so rushed, and I just wanted like a little bit more time to breathe. Like they gave us so much time in that middle of the episode, and I think it benefits that middle third so well. Like with her time with Bruce, like I think is easily the strongest part of the episode. And then like everything before and after that just like is so like rushing to get to someplace.
Yeah.
And like that is a great example. Like that courtroom scene could have used just a few more minutes, I think, to breathe and linger and like deal with the repercussions of like what's going on, the fight itself, like all this kind of stuff. And then like even in the front of the episode, like she basically is introduced, we immediately get a flashback, and that car is immediately flipped. It is like we're getting like no room to kind of process everything, and like I just wanted like a little bit more time to like settle down and like savor what is going on. Was like the biggest thing I wish we could have gotten. I understand we're gonna get 8 more episodes, but like for this first one in particular, like I like almost just wanted to like take a breath and like listen to Bruce's like yoga mantra and just like, really just like settle down for a minute. But
yeah, I think especially off of the heels of Miss Marvel, I think these shows have very different approaches to their first episode and like introduction of the superhero. That first episode 100%. Was like, we're going to tell this story about family, and at the end of the episode, she's going to happen to, stumble into superpowers. And the rest of the series is going to be her origin story. This one is, we're going to cram all of her origin story into a flashback so that we can get to the rest of the stuff. And so there is this like, we get the opening scene. She's like rehearsing her thing. She gets a little bit of sexism from, the other guy at the firm or whatever. And then she basically is like, okay, I know why you're here. You want to see the other thing. So we're going to show you the other thing. And then, it's basically like, it's the first thing is like racing to get to the flashback. And then the flashback is racing to get like cram in all of the backstory that leads to She-Hulk and why she can now like why she doesn't have to have this 15-year journey that Bruce had, and now we end the episode and can continue on. And I think it also is very deliberately like not explaining what the trial is about necessarily. It is very vague. I assume we'll get more of that. Her speech kind of has like hints of the like with great power comes great responsibility stuff, because I think she specifically talks about when you have such power, what is your responsibility or something along those lines.
Peter Parker's on trial.
Yeah. So I think like there's clearly a bigger bad at play there, but for the sake of like the episode is very much like we're gonna get to that in a later episode. This episode is entirely about like laying all the groundwork for the rest of the episodes versus that first episode of Miss Marvel that was like, we're going to introduce you to this family and this community and Kamala, and then we're going to have this series be a journey of her kind of turning into Miss Marvel. She's She-Hulk, and now she has to live with that, with everybody knowing that. It's basically like cramming the 6 episodes of Miss Marvel into 37 minutes of She-Hulk, and now going from there.
Unrelated, because I just brought up Peter Parker, I'm trying to like, does Spider-Man even canonically exist in this world anymore, or didn't he was blinked out basically for like everyone, right?
Spider-Man exists. People don't know Peter Parker exists, or people don't know Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
But I guess what I'm saying is, where is the cutoff for when It was just like, I guess it was like basically the end of Spider-Man 2 when it was revealed, like everything after that didn't happen essentially.
No, I think everything happened. Um, uh,
Did it? That's I'm not sure
yeah.
about.
No, everything happened.
This is a non sequitur to anyone listening, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, everything happened.
Everyone got Men in Blacked.
Everybody got Men in Black. Everybody knows Spider-Man. Like even
Okay.
Did you ever watch Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, they talk about like, yeah, we've dabbled with the multiverse. There was this thing with Spider-Man recently, so like they know Spider-Man is a thing, and they even know that they were somehow involved with Spider-Man stuff, but they don't know Peter Parker. Like Peter Parker's identity, like the weirder, broader thing.
The Avengers don't know who Peter is.
Yeah, the Avengers don't know Peter Parker is.
Right.
Like the
Mary
end
Jane,
of the end of the of No Way Home. Like Peter Parker didn't graduate. He has to he's got his GED test that he's basically like.
Oh right.
Like
yeah.
So like nobody knows who Peter Parker is. And that he is Spider-Man. But
Right.
Spider-Man and all of the things Spider-Man has done still happened.
Okay.
They just don't know how. Yeah.
Very convenient.
Yeah. I love one of the, either it was like how it should have ended or something like that. It was basically like, here's how it should have ended. Instead of the spell being like, hey, can you make it so everybody forgets who Peter Parker is? It should have just been like, hey, can you make it so everybody forgets who Mysterio was? Because if Mysterio never makes that reveal, nobody knows who Peter Parker, or nobody knows Peter Parker or Spider-Man. But yeah.
And Mary Jane and his friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All things, but yeah. So yes, like Peter Parker, like still exists in that universe, but nobody knows he was Spider-Man. Right. All of the things Spider-Man did, like those people know Spider-Man, and people know Spider-Man did those things. They don't have the person behind the mask that they can like tie those things to. But yes, that was
this is the messiness of the multiverse, everyone.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I look forward to, like, again, I didn't touch on them, but like Tim Roth, we've seen from trailers and stuff, is going to be making a long awaited return as Abomination in Tim Roth form, even because obviously he's made a little cameo in Shang-Chi as Abomination, but we're gonna get like Tim Roth making his return. They've heavily teased, and I think even in some of the latest stuff they've shown that like, yep, that's Charlie Cox back as Daredevil in this, so we're gonna get to see them. I don't know who she's playing, but I know
I saw
Renee Lee Scolsbury is in there, so we're going to get some Angelica Schuyler vibes in whatever form she's going to be doing. So yeah, going to be some fun stuff over the course of the next couple months here in She-Hulk. I hope. I'm certainly looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting, especially with our timeline of things, because this is their first time really doing a Thursday show. It is like, well, Thursdays are when we record, so we're gonna have to really stay on the ball if we want to do follow-up episodes like this one.
Did it come out?
Yeah,
this like
it came out
midnight.
It came out today. Yeah, it came out at midnight last night.
Right.
Which is when I watched it. You being a couple hours ahead pays off because you get off work and you have time to watch it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I got off work and watched it. Yeah,
exactly. to sit down and record. So,
is it midnight everywhere? Or midnight.
It's PT? Midnight Pacific. So yeah, it went live midnight last night for me. It would have been 2 a.m. your time. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Any final thoughts or favorite moments or anything else here from She-Hulk before we wrap up?
I'm excited to see how they handle all the spinning plates of her like personal life, the superhero element of it, the law aspect of it. I'm excited to see her superhero journey, because despite her protest, I imagine she's going to be a superhero. And so she already kind of is, I guess, after the first episode with that fight. And so I'm excited to kind of see how she undergoes that arc. And I'm just most excited, I think, to see who this cast of characters around her is going to be, because like you said, it's not just going to be her and Bruce for 9 episodes. It is going to be other people. And I think so much of the success of the show is going to be on how well those other characters interact with her. Because one of the things that, I'm not unique in this, but I think a lot of people think is that like the Hulk himself might not be a great main character, but he can be a really great supporting character, which I think is what we've seen in the MCU. And I think the people around him are so important, and similarly, I think the people around her are going to be very important to kind of help further flesh her out and flesh out her journey. And so hopefully she's got a great cast of characters around her, and I'm excited to kind of be introduced and spend more time with those people as well.
Indeed. Let's give this a grade from A plus to F. What do you want to give She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, a normal amount of rage?
I would say, I'm gonna give this a B. I'm totally happy. Like, there are issues I have. I think, there's some pacing things. Definitely, I think this episode needed time to breathe. We didn't really touch on it, but like her actual like transformation story is kind of silly. Just like a few drops of blood gets into her thing, and like that she's Hawk, whatever. But like on the whole, like I had a really fun time with it. I think the chemistry between her and Banner, well, I guess both are last name to Banner, but her and Bruce are great.
No, she's Walters. She's Jennifer Walters.
She's Walters. Okay, so yeah, I
They're
think
cousins,
her and Bruce's chemistry is great. I think they're a lot of fun. I could have had 20 more minutes of the post-credits scene of them just drunk together, just like trading stories. It's just so much fun there. And I hope we get more of her just like riffing with another character and having those good kind of back and forth moments. And so like, while there are some stumbles, it's the first episode, and I think it lays down a totally good foundation, and would be my second favorite series premiere of any of the MCU shows after Miss Marvel.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm probably B plus myself. To your point of how silly it is that like she gets a blood transfusion or whatever. Like
not even a blood transfusion, just like drops of blood. Like, it's whatever.
Yeah.
It's whatever.
I like that didn't bother me. In particular, like knowing that that's kind of like her story and knowing that's probably how they're going to go with it, I was like, but how is she going to get Hulk blood? Because the whole thing is like when he's in danger, when he's a threat or whatever, he hulks out, and like they can't get needles in him or anything. Like, how do you get Hulk blood? And so like I appreciated that like for the me's of the world, they were like, he's got this device that like he has like one line that basically says like, this device keeps me in human form. And so like he's wearing that device. It keeps him from turning into the Hulk enough for him to actually like bleed as Bruce and the thing to happen. So like I was fine with that. It's it's of course it's going to be some kind of like leap in logic to get his blood.
We need her to be the Hulk.
Yeah.
How can we get there? And like it happens very quickly. I like the fact they like had the line of like Bruce being like, "Get away from me," and then like he says that like as he's bleeding into her, and it's like that gave her no time to get away from you, Bruce. But like, all right, it's whatever. It's 20 seconds in the episode. Who cares?
And I like that, like her blood heals his arm, so they can have him just be in like normal form for the rest of like. So he's fully healed now from snapping the Infinity or the Nano Gauntlet from Endgame. So shout out to her blood, and I love that her like retort is like, because I'm better than you? I'm like, wait, what are you saying just happened? I'm a lawyer. You're a scientist. You know that stuff better. But yeah, like I like that. I agree. I think like so much of the enjoyment of this is the chemistry between the characters, and we obviously get a lot of Tatiana Maslany and Mark Ruffalo in this. I like having seen Orphan Black, like and just Tatiana Maslany's stuff in general. Like I'm very excited for her in this role, and yes, I hope that like everybody that is cast opposite her has the same kind of fun energy and chemistry that they can play along with and just have a good time. So yeah, probably B plus for me. I think I'm a little warmer on it, just because this is leaning more into the comedy side of things, which we like there's comedy in every Marvel movie, but like so much of it is the stakes are so high that it's quips instead of like full blown comedy, like Ant-Man or something like that is. That is just a comedy movie.
Ant-Man's a comedy. That just happens to have action moments in it.
Yeah. So yeah. extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. This was interesting because I couldn't actually put this in the doc last night after I watched the episode because they didn't have the suggestions listed yet. But I did put it in before we recorded because now they have Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the original Doctor Strange, Avengers Age of Ultron, which is not one you see very often out there.
Nope, I bet.
But they specifically call out the fact that Natasha sang him a lullaby sometimes. And I love the I can't really explain it. I love that they just kind of were like, yeah, sometimes just stuff happened. The original Avengers movie and Thor Ragnarok are our suggestions here. Extracurriculars. You watching anything else on Disney Plus?
I watched the Pixar shorts for last week's episode of D Plus.
Yeah.
Very, very good. And then otherwise, I don't think so. We finished Cougar Town for all those who are curious about my TV viewings. And we have shifted to watching Parks and Rec, and we're just about done with the second season. I've actually never finished Parks and Rec. I've watched the first 4 seasons of the show probably 7 times. Just those same first 4 seasons, and then never get any further just because something pops up and I get distracted and I watch something else and then I just never get back to it. So I'm making a concerted effort to finish all of Parks and Rec now. And so I've got spoilers obviously, but can you really spoil Parks and Rec? But I'm excited to watch the last 3 seasons of the show. And yeah, we have the next episode we watch is the last one before Ben and Chris make their appearances.
Gotcha. Yeah, those first couple seasons of Parks and Rec, basically the Brendanowitz era is just
I like Mark.
Yeah,
too. I like Brendanowitz a lot. I think he gets a short he gets kind of done dirty a little bit because midway through that season the actor was this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. It's I feel like I'm not really that involved.
He very much ends up his role in the show ends up becoming what Adam Scott comes in and does as Ben. But yeah, those first couple seasons, it was he's just the straight man to everybody's wackiness. He never gets to be the comedy guy, and so yeah, it just is a little especially that first season where all the characters are they haven't fine-tuned things yet.
The first season's rough. Yeah, for sure.
Much like the first season of The Office was.
The Office.
Fortunately, both of those are just 6 episodes, and then they took a break and were all right, let's figure out how to make these characters tick.
Yeah. Don't make Leslie a female Michael Scott.
Yeah.
That was such a smart decision. The show would not have worked if they had kept to that.
Yep. Let's just lean into her optimism and let's have every other character stop just crapping on her all the time. I think that was the
bring in Jerry, and we can it'll be great.
Exactly, Jerry becomes the person everybody craps on. Exactly. Parks and Rec, so good.
It's fantastic.
I especially there's a run in there of I want to say a good season and a half where there's not a single miss of an episode.
Season 3 and 4, it's those 2 seasons in particular, is just every single episode is just firing on all cylinders, and how seamlessly Adam Scott and to a lesser extent Rob Lowe just fit into that show immediately without missing a beat, and just instantly made it better. I feel it's taken for granted now because they're just part of Parks and Rec for the next 6 years or whatever, but that could have gone so poorly. And it just worked so well and made the show better in every way, in both characters' cases. And it's really great. I'm excited to see them get involved. Adam Scott in particular is such a fucking weirdo in all the best ways, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. And also shout out to, I know you've seen the news, The Mole getting a reboot. I know that being a show that you love.
What a weird show to I'm definitely excited about it, but what a weird thing. I saw the Twitter thread that you tagged me in for Joey and Jazz. What a weird, it's great, but The Mole only had a couple seasons, I feel back in the early 2000s. It's been probably close to exactly 20 years since it ended. I'm excited for that. That is super cool news. I remember watching The Mole with my family back on the couch in like 2000, 2001.
Yep.
When like they were just making a reality TV show off of anything because of how crazy successful Survivor was those first few years.
Yep.
And so yeah, The Mole's great.
In terms of what I've been watching, of course, continuing to keep up with High School Musical, as that just is a silly, dumb thing I can throw on for 30 minutes once a week. I also sat down and watched the Summer Vacation Lego Star Wars. It is very much in the same vein as the last couple, the Terrifying Tales that they did for Halloween, and then the holiday special they did a couple years back. Of like, it's basically like 3 episodes of a thing that they didn't necessarily have like full episodes, so it's basically just loosely stitched. We're going to tell this story. We're going to have like little interstitials. We're going to tell this story, and then we're going to have little interstitials. We're going to tell this story. But it's fun. Weird Al's has a cameo in it and has a fun little catchy song. So yeah, it was a fun enough time.
It's a SpongeBob episode. I know you don't watch SpongeBob, but every episode of SpongeBob is 2 episodes, right? Like they just like do like 2 10-minute episodes and like kind of the thing. It sounds like it's basically just that versus like a full 30 minutes of a Simpsons episode kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not as bad as Clone Wars the movie was, but it's basically that almost that idea of like here's the overarching thread for the 45 minutes.
What a thing I haven't thought about in so long.
There you go. Finn and everybody are going on like a summer vacation cruise, and everybody's going to go off and do their own things, and Finn is going to be sad because he thinks all of his friends are going away. So he goes to a cantina, and the ghost of Obi-Wan comes up, and they tell a flashback story to this fun little adventure Obi-Wan had, and then Finn goes off, gets a lesson from Anakin that comes and tells like a story between Darth Vader and Palpatine, and then Finn goes off, finds one more person, gets like a Solo family backstory kind of thing, and so they just have like it's basically like like 3 12-minute things with like a couple minutes in between of like moving the pieces to say here's how we're going to justify this weird flashback story, which Terrifying Tales was a similar kind of thing of like we're telling 3 stories in here and we're going to very loosely connect them all.
Treehouse of horror kind of vibe to it. It's the only one I really had like any idea of. I mean, I was already excited to watch it because I love Legos, I love Star Wars, I love Star Wars when it's fun. I saw people posting today like images of, like Anakin, I hate sand, and then it's like the Anakin or Vader and the Palpatine like on a beach, like putting down like beach chairs, and it's like I love that they're leaning into that.
Oh, they definitely they make that joke 2 or 3 times in the episode.
I would expect nothing less.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fun silly stuff. Maybe we'll do that for next week's episode. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, just silly Lego Star Wars nonsense. It's always fun. Like also like that one in particular, I will have some fun trivia on it. Because there's just some fun trivia to it, but there's also like this weird mix of like getting Billy D. Williams to come in and voice Lando and Rose Tycho comes in, not Tycho, Rose comes in.
Kelly Marie
Tran, thank you, as Rose Tycho, yes. So like there's as they often have, like there's a mix of the movie actors, the people who voiced Obi-Wan and Anakin in the Clone Wars are in there playing their roles, and then there's like the mix of like random other actors that come in and voice the miscellaneous other characters and stuff. So it's always a weird blend of like, who did they get for this one? And sure. Weird Al in particular being like a featured, guest in specifically in the middle sequence and having a full blown Weird Al song in there is a fun little time. So definitely check that out. Trying to think. I've not gotten back to Light and Magic yet, but it always pops up on my like, hey, do you want to continue watching this? So still need to get back to that as well. But yeah, that is going to do it for this episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you for joining me, Logan, to talk about She-Hulk Attorney at Law, this first episode. You can follow Logan at Lefty Logie, Loggy. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Logan?
I will give a shout out to Cameron and his Friday Night Dying Lights Let's Play series tour. Again, we're in the home stretch here. We've only got like 5 or so episodes left. It is very exciting. Cameron sent this week's episode in super early, which we love that. That was great.
Yep.
And then I will also say keep your eyes out for finally me coming out with my review of all 25 Bond films. I've written the entire thing. I've basically run through most of it again. I will send that over to Trevor tomorrow morning. So definitely by the time you listen to this, by the time you listen to next week's episode, it'll already be live. So yeah, be excited for that. It is probably the longest thing I've ever written. I think it's like around like 8,000 words. There are 25 movies. Let's talk about. So yeah, stay excited for that as well.
Yeah, that was the thing I was going to shout out. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey, and yeah, I know I finished the artwork for that piece today. I'm half excited, half dreading editing it.
8,900 words. Yeah.
All right, maybe I'll just be like, "Hey, Logan, I'm just gonna put this up and be like, I didn't edit this. This is just if there's typos, it's Logan's fault."
It's like that thing, like, but like it's 8,900 words over like 25 movies. Like it's a quick.
Yeah. I mean, but I've already had to edit a whole bunch of your words over all of those 25 movies too. So, that piece is going to come up. Also, shout out to the Lego James Bond Aston Martin that I know you've built. I have mine somewhere up behind me because I got myself one as well. So shout out to that small Aston Martin compared to the larger one that I got earlier in the summer.
It's super fun. I always forget how much I like to build Legos. Travi had got me a Millennium Falcon one last year for Christmas.
Nice.
Just what a fun thing that like we just like don't think about as much as adults. But then like you get like a Lego set and it's like, oh, this is just like the most fun. Mm-hmm. It's just like you get to be like analytical and build. It's great. I had a great time with it.
Yep. Speaking of, I will also shout out this week's Let's Plays. One is my Let's Play of Fortnite, where I stumbled into back-to-back wins, so you can kind of watch me do what I did a few months back of just kind of like narration of like revisiting the like and doing the play-by-play of it, and then I also did a revisit of a thing I'd done earlier of unbagging or unboxing Lego minifig packs. Speaking of Lego, so I'm getting sucked more and more into Lego stuff. So
we love that.
Potentially expect to see more of that on the site or on the YouTube channel in the months to come. Once I can figure out a better way to present it, because I'm definitely not happy with like the current thing. But you can see the beginnings of me trying to do Lego content here occasionally on our some of our Tuesday and Thursday stuff. So go check that out. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com. Keep an out where you will see Logan's piece in the near future. If you liked what you heard, once again, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.